Welcome to the IDP Hunting Grounds. I'm your host, Steve Hungarter, and I'm here with the latest and greatest IDP content creator over at the Fancy Six Pack, Mr. Jamie Perogue. How are you?
Oh, what's going on, Steve? Thanks for having me today.
And you're on a bunch of other shows, my friend, are you not?
I'm on a few with Going for Two, and then obviously I'm in the chat in almost every single show in this industry.
Jamie, you're the man. You got a couple shows going on. You're going to help us here with the IDP content, and I just appreciate having you on. And, you've been doing this a while. We've been doing this a while. We're kind of just talking online. I'm like, dude, why don't you just come on the show? We'll do a podcast. So we're kind of just flying from the hip here. And I kind of wanted to label this best practices, things that we've learned from maybe Super Bowl-esque to the start of the season, getting ready to head into preseason. There's a lot of things we learn because, this game, you learn, you grow, you keep carrying on. And I'm going to tell you, one thing I've learned over the years, do not draft a running back early unless you're competing right now. Why the hell would you take a first rounder? Why would you waste it on a running back unless that's the reason? I don't know. You got any thoughts on that?
Well, if there was a guy named Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs, last year I was drafting them in the first four, definitely 5 picks of the draft. Most of the time, Gibbs didn't even fall past the 104.
Those are solid names, though.
There's no Gibbs or Robinson in this draft, so I wouldn't even think about taking a running back until the 201, which is 12 weeks later.
I mean, when you look at these drafts, and we'll evaluate one of the drafts we did a couple months ago, there's a really good run. You said it, the 2.1, you could probably get the top running back in this draft. And if you want to go 2.4 to 8, there's going to be a run on running backs. It's going to be dealer's choice. You're going to have a smorgasbord of take your pick. Do you like meat? Do you like salad? Do you like cheese? Take your pick there. You're going to get anybody you want there. So why the hell would you do it? Me personally, I'm going after these top dog receivers, and that's what we've learned. Best practices over the years, just playing fantasy football. Best way to build is go wide receiver, correct?
Oh, for sure. You always build around receivers. If you're in Superflex, I would consider quarterback.
I'll tell you one of the worst ways to build. Go ahead and try to take an elite tight end every year. Happens. You remember those Kyle Pitts drafts last year? Where's he going in your drafts?
Recently, I haven't been in any startups, but I see his value falling, and he's outside the top 8 tight ends.
No, I mean in rookies. When he came out as a rookie, where was he going in drafts when he first came out?
Rookie, I've seen him as high as right behind Lawrence at the 102 in Superflex.
Yes.
At the latest, 104. Like, I haven't seen him fall out of the 104 in any of my drafts. He was going before Jamar Chase.
We were talking about this online. I think another best practice that we learned is, I like to draft early because it's an even playing field. There's no trade calculators out. There's no sharks. It's kind of an even playing field. All you have is your knowledge. All you have is your temple, your knowledge, what you're going to go with. My drafts, Pitts was going 1.5, 1.7. You were saying no. Oh, no. You had later drafts where the hype train was moving. Choo-choo, right? The hype train was moving. He was going all the way early as what?
102. It was crazy. I know. Yeah, it was Najee Harris was in that area. And then Javonte Williams, I believe, got some hype. Jamar Chase fell. He fell to 104, 105 in some leagues because there was rumors going around that he can't catch. I didn't fall into that. No way did I fall into that.
How does a professional athlete make it this far and can't catch like that? Come on, dude. Maybe the scheme or maybe the coach doesn't want him to catch. Maybe there's better options, but that's funny. I don't fall into those mental misnomers,
Yeah. In one draft, personally, I was at the 106. Jamar Chase went 1 pick ahead of me. And I think I took ETN the next pick. But later, I was in the beginning of the second round. I had a pick that I traded for at the 202. And I went Trey Sermon. after I drafted Trey Sermon, I went to the guy that drafted Jamar Chase at 105. I offered him my Trey Sermon, Raheem Mostert. So you got to remember, those two were the backfield of the Dolphins at that time. And I threw in my 308.
Ooh, sweeten the
And I
pot.
got Jamar Chase.
And that's another very good best practice. I'm glad you brought that up. We've learned over the years, if you're giving me an even Steven deal and you need to sway me one way or another, that third, that extra scoop of vanilla, that cherry on the sundae, you throw me a third round pick, and that's going to weigh me one way or another. Even though we know in reality that third can be anything. It's kind of like that Family Guy episode. I don't know if you've ever seen it with Peter Griffin. He has the box. And they're like, we're going to give you this or the box. And he's like, the box can be anything. It could even be the thing that, it's kind of a comedy thing. Yeah. But people like that mystery at a third round pick. So that's funny.
And that third round pick was actually Pat Freiermuth. So he got Pat Freiermuth, Raheem Mostert, and Trey Sermon. And I got Jamar Chase.
So for this podcast, we're speaking specifically for our dynasty teams. I get it if you're in a redraft and you want to shoot a Derrick Henry or something like that. I get it. But, just the mindset of doing dynasty, the long overall, the easiest way to build a team is get wide receivers, get those young, tall, athletic wide receivers, because they don't age. They don't go off age cliffs like running backs, right? They last a long time, right? They have a lot of good shelf life, don't they not, Jamie?
You can get a good 6 to 8 years.
Easy.
In their prime. That's just their prime.
And then also, Superflex quarterbacks. I mean, I think I was in a chat. I was on your chat. And that's something we didn't talk about. Jamie has a website, which we'll bring up in a second. And on FFD, somebody's like, well, how many quarterbacks do you need for a Superflex? And they're like 3, 2, 4. I'm like, you're crazy, dude. I'm taking 5. I'm taking 5 or 6. I'm knocking off a chess piece, if you will, off the board. I'm taking an extra quarterback because you never know what's going to happen. And then I have a bargaining chip. So most of my super flexes, I have 5 with 4 working competent quarterbacks that I can rotate out like a bullpen, like a pitcher's bullpen, and in that 5th one. Or I have 3 and I have 2 elites. Jamie, your webpage, you want to talk about that a sec?
So you talk about the fantasy football discussion group?
Yeah, that is booming. That's the largest group of its kind, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we're actually a private group, so you have to actually answer the questions to get in. But yeah, we do have football discussions daily, all day, every day. On Sundays, I always put out a start sit thread, and you can ask me anything, and I will literally tell you my opinion on who you should start and sit based on my rankings throughout the industry.
And these next 2 tips, I'm kind of bad about these. You want to value your rookie picks. I tend to trade them off to get better players. Like if I can move on from, I don't know, DeMarcus Robinson, you give me St. Brown, I get a first. I usually will value the player first, but not everybody, right? A lot of people will stockpile those rookie picks. What says you there? Do you trade a lot of your rookie picks? Do you try to build your team internally?
Depends on the rookie pick and how I think the draft will go. Right. Each league is going to be different. But honestly, if I was to give you, let's say, Jordan Addison and my 309 for the 106, 107, I would rather re-roll and take that 106 and get Odunze because I believe he's going to be above Addison. I would rather take the pick over the player. But there's other situations where I would take the player over the pick, depending on which player it is, like George Pickens. If you were to offer me 109 for George Pickens straight up, I would take George Pickens all day. Because I know what he is as a player. I know how he plays. And would I rather have George Pickens or Xavier Worthy?
Right. And you got to know your context. Like if you're in a 7 flex league, you better get those wide receivers quick. If you're in a 1 QB league, which to me those are a little more boring, I know I can wait on quarterback. Superflex mocks is kind of where we stick our ground. This is kind of the context of what we're talking about. Another thing, and sometimes I'm guilty of this, and I'm just going to ask you the question. You want to go BPA, you want to go best player available. But when you're in that 6th, 7th round and you're starting up your dynasty and you need that other RB2, sometimes I'm tempted to kind of close that and put the White of the Bucks in there, or maybe I can fit a Josh Jacobs in there, just to kind of make my overall team. But what do you normally do? Do you normally stick with the best player available plan?
Yeah, I go on value. So I would rather take the not necessarily if there was the best player available and I knew he didn't fit my team, I would try to trade back like 2 to 3 picks and get something on top of that, like 2025 third. Like, give me the 108 and a 2025 third for your 106.
You know what, too?
I'm going to get a similar player at that 108 just to move back a few spots. Plus, I have that next year pick to be able to move up later in a round.
You just brought me up another one as far as best practices go. You play that best player available until you get in the draft. Everyone has a plan, but as soon as you get in there, your hair's on fire. That plan goes out the window, don't it?
Yeah.
Ideally, I would love to get my players and maybe one of those picks, like you just said. Hey, I'll move back if somebody has a second for me or a first for me. Those 2 seconds could be a first, or that first could be another one later on. Just keep flipping it, right? But you always have a plan until you're done with that best player available. But I like that idea, Jamie.
But even at the 106 is different because I'm going to get Odunze. And I believe Odunze, Neighbors, and Marvin Harrison Jr. aren't that far apart. So I would rather trade for that 106 to get my stud player who I already have in the top 15 overall in wide receivers. Odunze, trust me, he's going to be up there, man.
Yeah, I got one of our boards I was going to pull up, and I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, so I love Odunze. I would trade for that 106, but then you got to also think: is there a start 11 roster or is it a start 8 roster? Because if it's a start 11 roster, I want that 109, 110 rather than the 106.
And I have one more talking point for best practices, and then we'll look into the mock. But I'm kind of good and I'm kind of bad at this at the same time. So I'm going to explain. A best practice for our audience at home and our viewers on Spotify, I would say, take advantage of rookie hype. Take advantage of what the recent news is and what have you. Rookie hype, take it to your advantage. So a lot of times when I'm in a league, and I know it's a deadbeat league, what I mean by that is people not trading. They're kind of sitting there like it's a best ball, dum-dums. I will wait right before a rookie draft. And I'm like, hey, guys, I have this first round. Whoever wants it, whatever. Some leagues, they won't move. Maybe these guys are playing baseball or hockey or anything. Some guys won't move until the rookie draft. I hate that. For me and Jamie, we're in the trenches. We're in the foxholes all year round. We're trying to make these moves and shake and move all the way around the board or move back on the board, if you will. There's no right or wrong way to make a trade, but using that rookie hype is good speculation. And I think me and you both do it well. Any thoughts on that as far as taking advantage of rookie hype up and down, depending where your drafts are?
So with me, I like to put the rookie picks into a tier. And I always like to get the value. So, for example, I just got a trade offer right now for the 101. I can get the 101 and the 110. And I can give up Olave and Ayuk. But he's also throwing in the 301 and the 302. Now, in my mind,
back in.
in my mind, like Ayuk and Olave equal 101 and 110. But adding in that, I would decline it. But if they were going to add in that 301 to 302, I kind of want that piece so I can use that for the rookie height and move up to the 206. So if I offered you the 301, the 302, and Jalen Hyatt for the 204, you're only moving back 6 spots, right? 7, 8 spots, and you're getting another rookie pick and Hyatt on top of it.
We talked this offline. Where I'm a little nervous is if you give me the choice between a veteran and a pick, 8 times out of 10, and I'm saying, there's always that 2% chance, but 8 times out of 10, I'm taking the player just because we know what it is. Just like I said earlier, that Peter Griffin Family Guy, what was it? A boat's a boat. You have a choice between a boat and a mystery box. The rookie picks the mystery box. A boat's a boat, but man, give me the mystery box. It could be anything. It could even be the boat, which is kind of ironic because you have it right here. We know what Olive's worth. You know what these guys are worth. You're taking a chance on these. And again, there's no wrong way to do it. But I guess it's assessing the value. But and I know we were talking offline, that draft a couple years ago with Kyle Pitts going so early as he did. Remember the quarterbacks in that draft class? Trevor Lawrence is the only one still standing. Mac Jones is a backup now. Fields is a backup temporarily. Who else was in that draft?
Trey Lance. Also a backup.
Yep. And there's one more. There's one more guy, if I'm trying to remember. Mac Jones, Fields. This was a once-in-a-lifetime generational draft class. They bust. And you were telling me, and I didn't even realize this, there's a position that busts in the first round pretty darn quick, don't it?
It's the quarterback. 55% of quarterbacks drafted in the first round of NFL drafts and they're busting.
Best practice again. Quarterbacks bust. And you know who else busts a lot? Running backs, don't they?
They do. Yes, they do. But that's they're also short term. It's almost like running backs going to be non-existent in draft capital.
We know tight end is a hit or miss too. So wide receiver is usually your best bet. But I'm going to tell you, and this is part 2 of this question, rocking the hype when you can. And you did a very good job of this. You actually taught me off the bridge a couple minutes ago, so I'm hoping we can go back to this. When players go through bad news, car accidents, charges, police reports, what have you, and this is the earliest play podcast about what Rashee Rice just went through with the Chiefs. He just had an incident, right? And I'm getting a lot of trade offers. I'm getting a lot of talk in my leagues, particularly where I have him. I don't know if they're trying to scoop him for cheap or should I get off him? I was a little nervous earlier, but you kind of taught me off that bridge. Jamie, you want to give me your take on Rashee Rice? Or just players of that avenue?
We learn from our mistakes, right? So we have to look back at what the NFL has done with mistakes that Rashee Rice has just currently have been in. So have you seen a suspension for Chris Olave? Because he was arrested after a reckless driving incident.
I didn't know that.
Jordan Addison. Was there a suspension for Jordan Addison? Because I'm pretty sure he took a plea deal and he only got a misdemeanor charge for reckless driving and it was dismissed. And he didn't get a suspension. Then we got someone like Deshaun Watson who was suspended 11 games. He was fined, $5 million. He had accusations of sexual harassment and assault, right? So people are like, oh, Rashee Rice. Yeah, he assaulted people because he hit and ran. People are in the hospital. Yeah, we don't know the facts yet. People are just speculating. Let's wait until the facts are all set and done. If he was involved, then yes, we have to look at it a different way. But people are just speculating. Then I hear there's a gun charge. Okay, well, gun charge, that's only a 3-week suspension in the NFL. Because who else had a gun charge? There was multiple NFL players that had gun charges. They would only be suspended 2 to 3 games. Domestic violence is a huge part of our society right now, and the NFL only gives you like 4 to 6 games for domestic violence. That's when you're beating your significant other, and they're only giving a 4 to 6 game suspension for that. We've seen it in the past. let's not overreact on this hit and run that Rashee Rice is going through right now. If you think he'll never play again, that he's going to be a Henry Ruggs that actually killed people and went to jail, no. Like, go buy Rashee Rice. Give up a mid to late second for Rashee Rice straight up. I guarantee that shit will be accepted so fast, and you're only going to get, 4 to 6 games missing out of Rashee Rice, and it's not even going to be next year. It could be a year later. So we're not even talking about this until a year from now.
Exactly. And you don't know what the future holds. So I'm holding my players. And you know what else, too, you didn't say about Rice? He's a 2-year player. You can probably stash him in most leagues taxis. So worst case, just hold him and see what happens.
Worst case, he goes to jail for 6 months. Whip-de-doo. Ruggs is 3 to 10 years. He can Ruggs can actually come back and get out of jail 3 years from now.
See, that's what I think. I had Ruggs on my brain when I heard this news. I was like, uh-oh. That's the extreme.
It doesn't even compare to Ruggs. Ruggs killed people. Yeah. Rashee Rice injured a few people, which I do feel bad about, and he should not have done what he did. And I believe he should at least get, I'd say, 7 to 10 games for everything that's going on.
And, on that note too, Jamie, we don't know player suspensions. We don't know what's going to go on with these guys. How many players have had to step up because the alleged starter or the guy with the blue chip value, the premium guy, first, second rounders don't really get cut too much unless they do something stupid, jackassy, right? So there's a lot of players in our drafts, and this is another best practice. Find studs in later rounds because you don't know how the landing spot, how it's going to work. I'm going to read you a list of just recent fantasy draft rookie data, okay? All these guys were found in later rounds. You ready? Puka Nacua, Tank Dell, Kyron Williams, Isaiah Pacheco, I know you know that name, Romeo Dobbs, Wicks while you're at it, Ramondre Stevenson, Nico Collins, Terry McLaurin. I got a lot of these guys on my team. And then CJ Stroud was the QB too. So no one really knows. And that's why I kind of put one of our older drafts up. No one really knows what the future holds. So, yeah, I think the later rounds, and that's what's so fun about this draft. Do you remember doing this, Jamie? This draft was like months ago. I think later rounds, those drafts that guys that do their research and homework, those early drafts, later rounds, those guys are going to end up being the premier picks for your teams.
Yeah, I'm looking at this draft right now. Lloyd pops out at me. Father Dynasty took Marshawn Lloyd to 304.
Well,
honestly, I actually like.
I was going to ask you the first.
I had the number 1 pick. So
I was going to ask you the first round. When you look at the first round, right? You got Harrison, Williams, Neighbors, May, Daniels, Rome, Bowers. That's 1 to 1.7. Let's sprinkle McCarthy to 8. That's pretty much the way we see it, maybe in a different order now, right?
So the funny part is, I had the 101 in this draft, and I told Jeff I was going to take Neighbors, and he said, "Well, this is for our going for 2 ADP." So I'm like, "Well, in that case, I'm going to go Marvin Harrison," because at the time, everyone looked at Marvin Harrison Jr. as the number 1 receiver, but I literally wanted Neighbors at the 101. So going back, I would have took Neighbors at the 101 in this draft.
Yeah, I really, like I said in the other podcast, I think your top 4 or 5 picks, it just depends how you're building your team. 1.1 Harrison, 1.2 Caleb Williams, or vice versa. Neighbors is in there. You got the May and the Daniels, right? Those are your picks. Rome Odunze or Bowers, it depends to me, tight end premier or not, but I'll flip them. JJ McCarthy's making noise. I'll tell you where the draft changes a little bit. A lot of people are punting Franklin now, which is usually where I would take him. You're seeing him go in the second or later at the end of the first. Brian Thomas is now the 1.8, 1.9. He's here at 1.10. I got him. So good value for me. Worthy is picking up steam because of his combine probably. So he's there in the 1.9. He's here at 1.11. And then usually the guy Mitchell, we have at 2.2. He's picking up steam. He's usually him and Franklin at the end of this draft with Keenan Coleman trailing 1.12, 2.0. So that first round, it really hasn't changed much except for Mitchell, I would say.
Yeah, Coleman at the 112, that can go either way between him and Mitchell.
Yeah. Depends how you like. I'm a Mitchell fan myself, but it depends. When you hit that 2.1, I think my strategy, there's two strategies here. You take the wide receiver who's left out of those guys, which I've been grabbing a lot of Mitchell, Coleman, Worthy. But you've noticed the top running back dog's usually there, right?
That's why I like taking the best running back at the 201.
So when we did this a couple months ago, there were 3 running backs to choose from. Braylon Allen, who has since perished. He has fallen from grace this combine, right?
Bucky Irvin, 2 picks later.
Thank you. Irvin's another one.
4th round right now.
But originally we had 3. We had Brooks. We had we'll do the 4. Originally we had Brooks. We had Allen, and we had Benson as our 3, and then Irving. Irving was a sleeper at 4. Well, now we got Allen.
I had Marshawn Lloyd as my 4 this whole time.
I had Lloyd as my 5, but anyway, what I was going to, those 5, 2 of them have already fell, right? So at the 2.1 right now, a good strategy is to take your top dog, your Brooks, your Benson, your Lloyd, if you will, even your Corum. You know, if that's your flavor of the week. Who's your top running back right here?
Right here is Jonathan Brooks.
Is it?
I don't think he would have came out as early as he did. He could have went back to college, but he has a right representation. So they told him to come out in this year's draft, because next year, if he comes out next year, he's going to be the 5th, 6th running back
easy
off the board.
Because you said it yourself. Next year's draft is loaded at running back, right?
It is loaded. So we don't know who's going to be the 101 next year at running back. But this year, Jonathan Brooks, he could be the top running back if he goes on IR the first 4 weeks. So be it. I want to see him on Dallas, because I think Dallas can go through the first 4 weeks if they draft Brooks and keep him on IR to make sure he's healthy. But I actually think he's going to be ready at training camp.
So what's interesting
here, timeline puts him at training camp.
What's interesting here, hanging on to 2.1, now that I know you and we've done enough drafts, I would take Brooks here because I know that's your guy. That's my guy too. But some drafts I'm in, and you got to read the room, and that's another best practice. Read the room, guys. A lot of times I'll put like an innocent thing in the chat. Hey, where are you guys from? If I know somebody's Indianapolis, I know they're taking John Taylor. If I know they're an Eagles fan, I'll do that. Maybe that's just an old school trick, but I will read the room. But there are some drafts right now, and we know them. A couple guys I'm going for 2 love Blake Corum, right? There's a couple guys on Fantasy Six Pack. They love Benson. I've seen some guys on IDP guys, I'm not knocking them. They love Austin Estime. So whatever room I'm in, if I know that one of those top 3 running backs, right? Brooks, Benson, and we have a new guy. We have a new guy in the house, which is Jalen Wright. That's another sleeper running back since the combine. That's another best practice that has changed. One of those 3 I want at 2.1, Brooks, Benson, Wright. If I know this draft is not high on my guy Brooks, then I know I can get him in the run that happens in the mid-second. That still occurs. When you look at 2.5 to 2.8, there's a mid-running back run. So basically, this is going to look like this. We know the first round. 2.1 is a Brooks type, right? Followed by the receiver, the Keenan Coleman type, the Mitchell. Once you get to 2.3, it's just fill-ins. Maybe the Polks, maybe the McConkleys, maybe the Coreys, maybe the this. I actually got McConkley a little earlier, but that's neither here nor there. But once you hit the mid-second, tell us about that running back run that's about to happen. It's an earthquake, right?
Yes. So with the running backs, though, I actually have it Brooks and then Corum. Marshawn Lloyd is my number 3.
You were talking about Lloyd, and I kind of interrupted you because I wanted to talk about the second. Lloyd has moved vastly up since when we did this draft, right?
Yeah. So, but then you mentioned Wright. Wright was taken in the 4th round of this draft.
Mm-hmm.
He's in my top 4. I'd rather have Jalen Wright over Braylon Allen, over a Bucky Irvin, over a Estime,
Me too.
over. This is going to be controversial, but I would rather have Jalen Wright over Trey Benson.
I don't have a right or wrong answer for you with these running backs. It's dealer's choice. The top 3 in some order are Brooks, are Jalen Wright, and Benson. Either way, if I get one of those, I'm good. For me, I like to take him in the mid-second. I like to kind of weigh you out because I know the first one's going early second usually, and I could get whichever one's left over. But for me and you specifically, I already know you like Brooks. So a typical draft, the second round would look like this to me. 2.1 would be Brooks. 2.2 would be whatever receivers there. I'm guessing Keen Coleman. 2.3 would be like a worthy type. Now here comes the run, right? 2.4 Benson, 2.5 Wright, 2.6 whatever running backs there. I'm guessing Lloyd. Maybe that second tight end comes off of Sanders, a 2.7, and I'm just speculating. A 2.8 would be maybe Corum or whoever's left in that bunch. You might see him go early. Some jackass may take him in the first. Who knows, right? You know what we haven't talked about, and we're already at the 2.9? This draft, we were not very kind on the Penix and Nixes. Expect somebody to take one of those guys in the second, if not both, right? And then, of course, you got the Braylon Allen types, the Purcells, the Romans, the Lloyds, and that bleeds us into the 3rd round where anything's possible.
Yeah, so out of looking at all these teams, I would say the 105.
Mm-hmm.
What is that, going for 2?
Yeah.
All right, he took Jaden Daniels, great pick. But after that, Bucky Irvin, Shipley, Frank Gore, look how many people that team missed out on. Every pick. So instead of Bucky Irvin, he could have had McConkey, Corum, Trey Benson. So let's look at the next pick. Instead of Shipley, he could have had Pearsall, a McMillan, a Leggett, a guy that we think isn't that great, but at that point right there.
At that point, he was hyped, though. Leggett and Wilson were hypes. So 3rd we thought was good value at the time, right? That's about their baseline right now, yep.
And then Frank Gore. Frank Gore was even drafted in our Fantasy Six-Pack draft. He was on the waiver wire.
Looking at the 3rd and 4th together, I think Lloyd's incredible value when we did this draft. It's fun to kind of compare these. And then also Jalen Wright came out of nowhere. And then receiver Purcell, expect him in a second. You know who fell from graces? Tez Walker. Tez Walker, you're getting him in the 4th now, and I don't know why. Brendan Rice went up a little bit. Cody Schrader train kind of, the steam died a little bit. What happened there, Jamie?
I'm looking right now, and I see I took Cody Schrader, and there's a guy that I would normally take in the middle of the 3rd that hasn't even went off the board. It's Javon Baker.
Yep.
Where have you took Javon Baker in this draft? That would have been my 401 because I would be willing to take Javon Baker right around where I actually took Roman Wilson.
Javon Baker wasn't a guy, especially I'm included. I wasn't high on him in the beginning because I really didn't know his game, and he's been burning a lot of people. At the time I knew the name, but I'm like, I don't understand this player. I don't know the comps. So you're right. Javon Baker came out of nowhere. But again, we were one of the first to start doing these. So it's just kind of fun to go back and look to see how close we were,
Well, a red flag to me is Jalen Wright. Because why was he taken in the middle of the 4th round 2 months ago? Yeah. And now he's a top 5. Someone's number 1.
The combine blew him up. He was even on my radar back then.
Why wasn't he on someone's radar? And he's in this draft. Let's see, 1, 2, 3.
Do you want to know why?
6, 7,
because
8, 9, 10, 11,
when he
12.
was in college, he didn't get a lot of carries. He got very little carries. Still had 7 yards a clip and busted 1,000 yards.
Neither did Roshan Johnson. Roshan Johnson
didn't get was on
carries either.
You know who was on right before anybody else? I got to give him credit. Jeff Lambert was all over it. He was all over it because I'm like, what? This guy,
Why didn't he take him before Frank Gore?
I had him on my other podcast. He said he sentimental pick for him.
He is a 49ers fan, so I do see that.
Yeah. But yeah, that was a good take on Baker because there was a lot of that. Like, and that's why it's so fun to look at these things later on. But yeah, he wasn't as highly touted when we were trying to dig through these rookies early on in the year. Yeah. But yeah, he is now, definitely is now.
So one pick that stands out to me that's a great value in this draft that we're looking at is Ladd McConkey.
Yeah. Yeah, we're taking him
he
high
went
now,
at 207, and I've seen him go at 112 above Coleman. And I would actually put McConkey above A.D. Mitchell. I put McConkey above Coleman. So McConkey would be my 112.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, that 1.12 is going to be fun. Somebody may try a running back. Somebody may take a receiver. But, yeah, I'm taking McConkey somewhere in there too. Franklin's getting punted all of a sudden. I don't understand. He's a vertical threat. I had him as early as a wide receiver 5 or 6 at one point. But, yeah, at the end of that draft, we know the order. What's that?
Franklin, I heard bad things about him. So I can
I didn't know too much. What did you hear?
Just he's not as good as a prospect as people put him up to be. So he could be that type depending on where he goes in drafts. He could be the Sky Moore like guy that jumps up just because he gets good draft capital.
I can see that too, to be honest.
Be like Quentin Johnson, who we all put as wide receiver 4 last year, 5, some people. Franklin's just that kind of guy that it depends on where he lands. If he lands on a great spot, I would actually move him up. If he lands on a bad spot, I'm staying away from him. So kind of like the
that
opposite.
Makes sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anybody else in here you see or you were kind of curious or shocked by? But like, again, it's so fun to go back to these older drafts. But I think for the most part, you know, we kind of had it figured out, especially those earlier rounds.
Malik Washington sticks out to me because I don't believe he belongs in the 4th round. I believe he's a early to mid 3rd round pick.
You seen that one draft we just did? He went earlier. Hey, on that note, I wanted to tell you something about Javon Baker. I had to pull the data. Javon Baker got buried in college. That's why we weren't tracking him. He was behind Devontae Smith. You know how that went. And then Jamison Williams. So he was behind both of those guys. So he was coming up right before both of those guys. So he had very limited play in college. What he did have is 935 yards and 6 touchdowns. So Javon Baker was one of those guys we didn't know till we seen him at the Senior Bowl kind of thing. We weren't tracking him. Those Devy guys were, but we weren't tracking him. You see how great those Devy guys were in that rookie draft we just did? They kicked our ass because they knew what they were doing. They see these guys. They know how it works. But guess what? The landing spots in these later 3rd, 4th rounds are going to really pay off for us.
Yeah, for sure. So, Steve, who are some of your favorite Devy guys? Because I know one of mine is John Lobb. If you haven't heard of John Lobb, you need to find him on Player Profiler. He's on the Rookie Big Board. He's been with multiple platforms in the past. Dude is amazing. And he makes my job a lot easier because I don't have to go and watch film because he does it for me.
What's his name? John who?
John Lobb.
John Lobb.
Player Profiler. He's been on Going for Two network before. This guy is 100% legit. If you are in Devy leagues, he will give you all the Devy information that you need He's my go-to guy for rookie breakdown profiles. Like, of course, I have hundreds of people that I like, but he is up there in the top 5. John Lobb is definitely a top 5 rookie profile breakdown Devy guy. Definitely go follow him.
You know what's crazy? I don't really get into college, and I don't really devy as much as you think I would. I kind of start this around Super Bowl time. I kind of start hitting drafts, rookies. I kind of start looking at it, and I like tape. I mean, I don't go too crazy. I know some people go to sites. I know my buddy's a scout. He shows me some of the things. I just YouTube a lot, and I kind of look and I study profiles, and I'm like, oh, I can see how that guy fits, that sort of thing. Because at the end of the day, it's a guess, you know?
We have jobs that we have to do daily for 8 to 9 hours a day for 5 days a week. But we also have people that do this as their job 8 to 9 hours a day. And those are the people that you want to pay attention to. And John Lobb is definitely one of the top guys that you want to look at for college rookie breakdowns.
Yeah, so that's
we're breaking
there,
up.
buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we broke up a little bit. I think we covered best practices the best we could. Is there any closing thoughts that you had on this pod? And then also tell the audience where they could find you.
Just don't overreact to the like coach speak, let's say. You know, like for example, Roshan Johnson is doing awesome, and we want him as our number 1. But then they go and trade for Swift.
Just don't Jamie's fall the biggest Johnson fan.
You cannot fall into the coach speak. Let's follow the right process. Let's wait for the draft to happen, and then we'll look deeper and dive into the rookies.
And one pick is not going to destroy your draft. I've seen people like take Mark Sanchez in the first round and still win their leagues. I'm like, how the hell is that even possible? This is years ago now. But, you know, one pick is not going to destroy your draft. Hey, Jamie, tell the audience where they can find you.
Yeah, I'm going for 2. Go look at their live YouTube. We have a Discord, completely free. I have a fancy football discussion group on Facebook. You can find us there. I know Steve's involved in that. And I also recently got connected with Steve, and we're going to start doing some IDP content on Fantasy Six Pack. So check us out on Fantasy Six Pack doing our IDP breakdowns.
Check us out. We're going to be doing the IDP content. We're going to head out early tonight, guys. Catch us out over there, and you'll see us on the next episode. Take care.
Yeah, peace.